Lionel. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Professional Triathletes Organization US Open here in Irving, Las Colinas, a triathlon town that has hosted numerous major triathlon events, starting with the 2000 USA Olympic trials for triathlon way back then, and still hosting a huge events, including this weekend's PTO US Open, the third event of the PTO Tour for 2022 with $1 million prize purse. My name's Kevin McKinnon. I'll be your host of the press conference and your lead announcer throughout the weekend, along with Karen Smyers, who's smiling at the back there. Another big name that we could have up here as well. I'm going to introduce all of our amazing athletes momentarily, but before we get started, we'd just like to show you this quick preview video.
A new era of triathlon starts now. The PTO Tour, the evolution of endurance, the ultimate athletes, the ultimate distance for the ultimate prize. Triathlon's greatest events. PTO US Open. Triathlon heads to Texas. Last chance to settle the scores. Who can handle the heat and become the US Open champions?
Well, up on the stage, we're starting with our pro women's press conference, and then we'll bring up the guys after that. So sort of try and do a seamless switch over here, but I don't know, these guys don't look very coordinated. These guys look awesome, so I have no idea how that's all going to work, but we'll figure it out. Daniel's like, man, you are a dead man, Kevin. I love it. So up on the stage at the far end of the women here, we have Taylor Knibb, PTO World Ranking number 7 and Olympian. She was a silver medalist in the mixed relay in Tokyo last year. She was the fastest athlete at last year's Collins Cup and the Ironman 70.3 Oceanside winner from 2022. And as you can see, she's not popular at all. In the center, she is a 4-time Ironman champion, PTO World Ranking number 18. She won Ironman Texas earlier this year, finished second in her Collins Cup match last month, and the super mom parent of Emmy and Sydney. I don't know if I'm allowed to say super mom or not, but seems appropriate, especially in this case. Jocelyn McCauley. Over to my right, PTO World Ranking number 5. She's the defending Ironman 70.3 World Champion, a 3-time runner-up at the Ironman World Championship, and recently won the World Triathlon Long Distance Championships in Shamarin. Other than that, she really hasn't done anything. Lucy Charles Barkley. And all the way over to the right, the hardest thing for me in this press conference today is going to be stopping Taylor from asking this gentleman questions and taking up our entire press conference. I'm with you, Taylor. I could do that as well. 4-time Olympic gold medalist, 8-time World Championship gold medalist. He won the 200-400 double in Atlanta at the '96 Olympics. He formerly held world records in the 200, 19.32 seconds, and 400, 43.18 seconds. You couldn't go under 43? Come on. His 200 U.S. record stood until this year, 26 years in total, and he still holds the American 400-meter record. That stood for 23 years. I hardly need to say his name. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Johnson. Michael, I'll start with you down at the end there. What why on earth are you here? Like, there's, I don't recall ever seeing you swimming or biking. You're just running super fast.
Yeah, I mean, actually that 200, 400 meter double is as close as I've ever come to anything even close to a triathlon, and that was still a duath. No, it's great to be here, and look, I've always been super excited about sports performance, human performance in sport, and so it's great to be here. This is also my home. Dallas is my hometown. I live in California now, but still got the Texas roots, and make it back here often. So this is very exciting for the Dallas area to welcome you guys here, and what you're doing with PTO is amazing, very interesting to me, coming from a sport which also I think sort of has traditionally failed to really highlight the greatness of great athletes, and so I'm here in that capacity, and I'll be commentating, and probably my commentary will be more about more asking the dumb questions, but helping fans sort of bridge the gap in their knowledge of what these great athletes are doing.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to tell you, we've changed your role a little bit, so you're actually going to be running in a relay tomorrow.
Okay.
So we figured, even if you just go like half of your normal speed, you'll still be pretty darn quick.
I'm good for 4x2 meters these days. Something in that range.
All right, so no mixed relays for Michael, but all right. Actually, I'll start Taylor and Lucy. Both of you guys coming off injuries right now, and it seemed like those injuries kind of came as you were on top of the world. I was going to joke that I keep doing major features on you guys in my magazine, and then you drop off the face of the planet. But and we hear that, injuries are part of the sport, and you sort of have to work through it. But I'm guessing it's not that easy. What was it like, sort of getting that news that got to take some time off, and how do you work through all that? Whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, it's super tough, and like you said, I was definitely at the highest point in my career that I'd had, coming off the back of a world title, to only a few months later get told I had a stress fracture in my hip. So that was really tough to take, but I think kind of moving forward 6-7 months now, I've come out the other side a much stronger athlete, and actually if I went back in time and was told you could not have this injury and be where you are, or you could be where you are now and have had the injury, come through it and come out the other side, I think I'd still take having the injury, because I've learnt so much about myself from it, and I definitely feel like a stronger athlete now.
Well, I'd have a similar answer to that. I think that when you have an injury, you kind of look through everything that you're doing and you question everything, maybe a bit more than if you didn't. And so then you can kind of like look at everything and then be better at the end.
So coming into this race, especially for you, Taylor, are there questions? Are you sort of like wondering how things are, or have you had the workouts over the last little bit that you feel confident coming in here?
Well, I think there are always questions going into a race. You never know what's going to happen. That's why we hold the race. So regardless of if I had raced every weekend for the past 52 weeks, or this is my first race in 4 months, there are going to be questions. But I'm excited to race. I'm grateful to be on the start line, and we'll see what happens tomorrow.
Yeah, Lucy, you had such a great comeback event, and I got to announce you coming across that line in Shamarin, and seemed like there was a lot of emotions and a lot of happiness there. Can you talk a little bit about that experience and how you're feeling coming into this one?
Yeah, I've always been an athlete who loves to race. Since I was a little kid, it was always about trying and racing and going as hard as I could. So having 11 months away from racing was really tough. So to come back and put down a really solid performance meant a lot. And the emotion definitely come out because I was so happy to be back. And I think that race has given me a lot of confidence going into this one. I think if this had been my first race back, there would be huge question marks. But now I feel I have a lot of confidence across swim, bike and run.
Awesome. Jocelyn, for you, you're coming off a solid performance at the Collins Cup, great races earlier in the season. What is the PTO, the tour events, what are those like? That a little shorter than some of the stuff that you're doing and jumping into with the speedsters like these two.
Well, she, like you said, has also come runner-up 3 times in Ironman World Championship, so she's not just a speedster. But yeah, the World Tour events are amazing. These races are put on and are so much fun, and just an honor to be here, and different than corporate America or corporate world and stuff. And so our jobs are our bodies, and going through pregnancy and then childbirth, it can be very different. Each child, my first one was very easy. I was back up and racing very quickly as an amateur, and then this one took a lot out of me and was a lot rougher. The pregnancy was rougher, the childbirth was rougher. So to know this time around that I actually had the 15 months, so 9 months of pregnancy and then 6 months postpartum, to be able to get back into racing shape and compete meant so much to me and my family. And then I think having this groundbreaking maternity leave policy and being an example to so many other sports out there means a ton, because the thing is women, there was a research that just came out that women come back 62% stronger after childbirth than prior to. And so we, with the maternity leave policy, are allowing those women to gain that 62%, to be able to break barriers, to break records, to continue to progress the sport, and to not have them come out of the sport and have a third of the field not there anymore. And so I think that means a ton, not just for triathlon, but for sport as a world global.
Yeah, awesome. Very.
Woman power.
See, I sort of felt like I was teeing that one up perfectly, and hopefully, so well answered. Okay, 62%. So are you guys trying to, Lucy, are you and Reese now thinking, Reese is like, holy jumping.
It also takes 15 months.
Michael, I'll sort of follow up. You've talked a lot about athletics and how, that athletics can learn from what the PTO is doing. Can you follow up with a little bit of what Jocelyn was just saying about what other sports can learn from the PTO?
Yeah, I think people followed the Allison Felix news story and her advocacy for maternity leave for athletes, from contracts as well, and her sort of battle with her sponsors around that. But I think, it's interesting to hear that stat, because there was a lot of attention given to a lot of the track athletes over the last year, female track athletes who've had children and have come back and run faster. But that's been happening for a very long time. When I was competing, we had athletes, Gwen Torrance, athletes who were, great athletes and went off to, start a family and came back and ran faster. And so it's great to hear that stat. We started to see, after we started to see those athletes come back winning medals, we did see more female athletes deciding to go have kids, so that they could continue to be competitive with the moms. But I think that
Taylor's going, really? I don't want to have a child quite yet. I'm not ready for that.
I mean, you can take your chances, but I think there are a lot of parallels though between triathlon and what we're seeing in track and field in that way, with leading in female athletes being promoted much more, and then also equal pay as well. That's always been a situation with track and field. It's always been equal pay for both genders. So I think there are a lot of parallels there, and it's great to see that, and hopefully it continues to permeate sports as a whole.
Awesome. Taylor and Lucy, again, I feel like I'm asking joint questions of the two of you. 2024 Olympics, both of you you've already been to an Olympics. You've been banging on that door, once back in 2012. I don't know if people realize how close you came to making the open water swim team for the UK back then. Are the Olympics in the picture for 2024 for each of you, and how does the next couple of years look?
I haven't really looked that far ahead, to be honest. I think with the injury, it kind of changed my plans a lot. And with the PTO Tour taking off, that's definitely a big focus of mine. Obviously, I've been racing over the long course as well. And Hawaii is still a big thing that I want to try and win. So, yeah, I guess I have to get past the end of this year and then start looking to the future. And I have a really good relationship with British Triathlon now. They've already sent through the selection criteria for the Paris Olympics, which I haven't actually read yet. But yeah, it's definitely something I would still love to do. But yeah, there's so many opportunities now in triathlon, it's hard to pick where to go.
Well, for me, I feel like this is coming up in distance for me, so Paris is still a huge focus, but we'll see. A lot can happen over the next 10 months, or no, it's like 22 months away. So it feels like a really short cycle, but at the same time, there's a lot of time, and there are a lot of strong American women.
Jocelyn, when you kind of look at where the sport is right now, do you kind of feel like, oh man, I wish I had started my career 10 years earlier, like with, there was a PTO back when you first turned pro?
Well, I mean, yeah, the PTO has brought a lot of good to the sport. So, I mean, but I don't live in woulda, coulda, shoulda. So, I mean, I'm happy with where my career is now. I'm happy with how I came up through age group ranks and, had to work myself and, try so hard and everything. And I think I gained a lot of gumption from that. And that probably helped a lot in my career as well. So yes, of course, but I'm not a woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Yeah, love it. This weekend, obviously $1 million up for grabs and a nutty competitive field. I was looking at, just the people who aren't at this press conference who normally would be, defending Olympic gold medalist. And that list sort of continues. Can you just sort of run through? I'll start again, I guess I'll start with you, Lucy. Keys to winning, and you're not allowed to say coming across the finish line first.
Oh, I mean, it's a 100K distance, so I feel like there's an opportunity to go maybe harder than you would on the half distance, of course. So with the short course girls coming in, they're almost just pushing up that speed from the Olympic distance over this 100K distance. So in order to win, you need to go pretty hard. But in this race, this weekend, it's going to be super hot. So yeah, you could go hot from the gun, but if you overheat and blow up, you're not going to win. So it's about going hard, but being smart and managing that heat. And the one who's the smartest is going to win.
Yeah, I would second everything that she just said, really. Like, I was
okay,
perfect.
And you're also not allowed to just say, yeah, whatever she said.
I mean, I think, having to be able to win on a course like this and a place like this, you have to have the belief to do it. And I think that in pretty much any race that I go into, you have to have that belief, you have to have that visualization going into that race to be able to see the outcome happening, and you have to have lived that many times before it actually comes to fruition when you come across that line first. And so I think that most times that you see a winner win, they have already redone that in their minds so many times. So.
Well, I'm kind of excited for the 2 different days of racing and just a little bit different conditions, because I think that the answer is probably very different for the men's race and the women's race. I'm not sure, based on the fields, we race a little bit differently. And I have that question too. Who's going to win? How are they going to win? I think if we knew that, we wouldn't have the race. So I'm excited, and we'll see what happens tomorrow and Sunday.
Awesome. Yeah, no, and I guess, Sunday they're talking even warmer than Saturday, and, the heat conditions could be kind of crazy. Are you worried about the heat? Any of you guys?
I spent a night in a third world country hospital because of heat stroke. And so to say I'm worried about the heat, of course I am. Like, I mean, I have typically not raced well in the heat, but that's going to change.
Yeah, you've got like almost 24 hours to get acclimatized,
That
I'm
was
sure.
3 years ago, and I've been training down in the Woodlands. I'm from College Station, Texas, so I'm from Texas. I'm used to the heat and humidity, and yeah.
Michael, I'll sort of bring you in. You're no stranger to winning and winning under pressure and all that kind of stuff. What were the keys for you to I can't imagine what it was like in Atlanta in '96 and then turning around again in Sydney 4 years later. How did you handle that kind of pressure?
Yeah, I think it's understanding how to manage the pressure yourself. It's different for everyone in terms of how you manage pressure. I think the key for me was once I figured out, how to manage the emotions, how to manage my mental state as I went into that competition. I'm a control freak, and I know that about myself, and so controlling my environment as much as I can. But the sort of other side of that sort of double-edged sword is that you can't control everything. You have to then figure out how to focus only on the things you can control, identify when you're thinking about or spending energy on something that you can't control. So, for example, before every major championship, certainly at the Olympics, there's the call room. That's where they call you to the, area where, everybody has to sit there. You're sitting there with your competitors. They always find the smallest room they can find with no windows, and you're there with the other 7 competitors, and it's very tense. And you could find your mind starting to wonder, or, your competitors, and you start to see, man, he looks really good today. You start thinking about, I think it's today he's going to beat me. If you start to go down that road, I can't control how he's going to run. He's in his lane, I'm in my lane, So now I'm focusing on things that I can't control. So you have to be able to recognize those things, focus back on the things that you can control, which is how you're going to run this race. And so those sorts of things are key. And then, in that moment before the race starts, you always it's inevitable that your mind is going to wander to, am I ready today? Am I ready to produce my best performance today? And you want to be able to say yes. But if you didn't really train as hard as you could in those months and weeks, leading up, then the answer is not yes. And that then starts to concern you. And you start to know that now it's coming home to roost because the moment of truth is here and I don't know if I'm really ready. You want to be able to say, yeah, I did everything that I possibly could to be ready for the moment. And then you can be happy and you can live with the result as long as you go out there and produce, your best performance on the day. And if somebody happens to be better, fortunately for me, that never happened. But had it happened, but yeah, if that happens, you can live with it. You can live with. You can live with having known that, you gave your best performance and somebody was just better on the day and you couldn't control that.
Yeah, I love it. The will to win is nothing without the will to prepare.
Absolutely. And that's when, that preparation starts in those weeks and months, leading up to the event, knowing every day that, this is an opportunity today to be ready for that moment and be prepared for that moment. And this is where I trained in this heat every day. And so, yeah, there were days when it was unbearable when we had, 3 consecutive months of, 100-degree temperatures every single day, and you're out there training in that. You just still got to get out there and give everything. And so it's in those days and months and weeks leading up that you have the opportunity to be prepared, and you don't want to squander any of those opportunities so that in that moment of truth you can say, yeah, I gave everything and I'm ready.
I love it. Thank you. Taylor, we're going to get the guys up here, but I'm going to give you a chance. Your question to Michael, if you want it.
Oh, wow, you told me I wasn't allowed to ask any questions. But,
go for it.
Oh, wow, you're putting me on the spot. I haven't really, but just one?
Only one.
Okay, so if you could go back and tell yourself as a 22, 24-year-old, what would you tell yourself?
To be completely honest, at that particular point, I was just starting my professional career, and I was really fortunate to learn all of the lessons really early. So I'd have to go back a few years before that. So if I could go back to 19, let's say, when I was 19 years old, and I had a tremendous amount of potential, and I loved running. Nobody ever had to tell me, to come to practice and run. I loved running. I didn't like stretching, didn't like lifting weights, still don't like those things. So I spent my first 3 years of college injured every year. And that was because I spent those 3 years trying really hard to make history, becoming the first world-class sprinter ever to do so, not lifting weights and stretching. And so I would tell myself what I eventually learned, and fortunately I learned it early in my career, that, look, there are fundamentals, and, regardless of who you are. I ran differently. You can get away with that, but you can't get away with not doing the fundamentals. I mean, regardless of whether you like them or not, you can't just do the things that you like. You got to do the things that it takes to be great if you want to be great. So that was a lesson that I learned. Fortunately, I learned it early enough, but I would have, if I had learned it earlier, I probably would have made one more Olympic team in 1988.
Do you still do them today?
You did sneak in another question. Nice. I still don't like them, but I still do them. But at this point in my life now, there are other things that are fundamentals that, you have to sort of do that you don't like doing. So every day, yeah, there are things that I don't like doing. I'm still very tight, and as you get older, which you will learn at some point, it becomes more difficult. So I hate yoga, but it's good for me. So I do it reluctantly, but I do it as much as I'm supposed to. Yeah.
All right, before she jumps into another question, let's get the guys up here. And thanks, Taylor. That was awesome. Thank you so much, Taylor Knibb, Jocelyn McCauley, Lucy Charles Barkley. Come on up, guys, if we could get you all up here. Yeah, good grief. Taylor, you need to keep racing because you're going to be a great interviewer down the road, and I'm going to be out of a job. The Canadians can stay close to each other down at this side of the... All right, well, it gives me great pleasure now to introduce the men that we're having here at our press conference here today for the PTO US Open. On my right over here, PTO World Ranking number 4. He's a 2-time runner-up at the Ironman World Championships, 2017 World Triathlon Long Distance World Champion, a 27-time half-distance champion, and the winner of his match at last month's Collins Cup, Lionel Sanders. Next to him, PTO World Ranking number 6. He was 3rd at the 70.3 World Championships last year, won his match at the Collins Cup, as he did last year, and winner of Ironman 70.3 Elsinore, and I got to announce him winning at Ironman Lanzarote last year. That's where actually I think I met you for the first time. Daniel Beckegaard. And PTO World Ranked number 11. He's a 2-time Ironman champion, Ironman 70.3 Gdynia champion from earlier this year. Second to Lionel in their match at the Collins Cup. Yeah, he's like, I know we're going to be talking about that.
All the second place.
This is Sam Long from the US of A. So, Sam, I'll start with you. You're sitting next to a gentleman who has done just a little bit of sprinting. Are you tapping into any hints from him to figure out how to outsprint Lionel?
Well, I'll say my race strategy started from the time we got to pick our seats. You notice I jumped up, I sat here, I forced Lionel as far away, and I'm hoping that the fast genes, that the fast sprinter mentality comes into me because I'm doing everything I possibly can to win this sprint.
Oh, sorry. And are we anticipating another sprint here? Lionel, I'll let you pitch in here. What's the race plan for this weekend? Sort of sit on Sam and then just take him because you've outsprinted him 2 times anyway.
If Sam and I are sprinting for the win in this one, we are doing something right for sure. So it is a very, very deep field, and as you saw in Edmonton, it definitely benefits the shorter course guys, I think, a bit more than the longer course guys. So if we're sprinting, that's going to be good for us, for sure.
Awesome. Daniel, I'm guessing that you're not interested in having a sprint into the finish line with either of these two.
I think I've been working a bit on my sprints as well. I've seen how the last couple of races have ended up, so I'm prepared for that portion. But I think I've not really done my job well if it ends up in the sprint. So I hope it will not go that far.
Michael, we've been playing around with this stat from the Collins Cup, and so we kind of worked out that Sam and Lionel both were running 20.4 seconds per 100 meters, which is like... So you literally ran 200 meters a second faster than these guys. But can you imagine doing that 180 times, which is what they would have done?
Yeah, I mean, after swimming and biking, that's just it. That's crazy. And I think that, it really does. Some of these stats and some of the things that I've heard, that these triathletes have done, I think that story deserves to be told. And that's sort of the thing that I think, even in my sport as well, that's why I'm so interested in what you guys are doing here with PTO, is helping people sort of put these things into perspective. It's not enough to just sort of go, this person's the best in the world, or these athletes are the best in the world. When people at home, or just sort of the layperson, can really understand that and put that into perspective, what that really means, it really sort of, drives interest, and it helps people really understand just how great. And if you're just into times and stats as well, it doesn't do it justice until you can relay that to people at home. Like, I'll tell people a lot of times, they'll come up to me and be like, oh, you're the world record holder in the 200 meters? And I'll say, yeah. And they're like, what was your time? And I'll say, 22 seconds. And they'll go, oh, my God. 22 seconds is like high school time. Not even. So they don't know. They just, they have no clue, right? But when you start to put it into a context that they understand, then it starts to make a lot more sense. So I think that that's really important, to just sort of, help people at home, help fans understand just how great these athletes are.
Yeah, awesome.
I understand what 20 seconds for 100 meters means, but a lot of other people wouldn't. But when you start to relate it to what I do, and you start to say, okay, you did that 180 times, then it starts to make a lot more sense to people. Yeah, no, that's true. Like, you go out to a lot of people, they couldn't run 100 meters in 20 seconds, and you say, yeah, we're going to do that 180 times, and then have to sprint at the end, which is always kind of fun. Lionel, I wanted to follow up with what Michael was just saying about telling the stories, and you and Talbot have been doing that with huge success over the last little bit. Why did you want to get into that? Doing the YouTube videos and telling the story. Why was that important to you?
It all started with a written blog, actually. In the beginning, it was kind of to try and get some sponsorship and stuff, but also I just enjoyed the journey. Triathlon saved my life, I believe, and so I just enjoyed, basically it was like a blog to myself. I was like just writing letters to myself, really, like my thoughts down on paper. And that's how it started. We did that for a few years, and then slowly we started to do videos. We could reach a bigger audience. And so now it's just become like a fun thing that we do. Like, there's really nothing other than to just try and, it's like a creative outlet for us. And so, I just enjoy trying to be creative and telling different stories and what's going on in the process of becoming a pro, and the ups and the downs, and just bring people along for the journey.
That journey, you sort of alluded to, triathlon has, you've sort of talked about it kind of saving your life, or certainly changing your life dramatically. Can you just tell, for people who maybe aren't familiar with all three of them, the Lionel Sanders story, can you sort of give us a little synopsis of how that all came about?
I got into triathlon. Basically, I was like in a dark place in my life. I was abusing drugs and alcohol, and I had kind of like lost the desire to live, really, and I needed something more. And fortunately for me, the idea to do an Ironman triathlon popped into my head, and I Googled it, and it was, an extreme race that I couldn't fathom accomplishing at that time in my life. And so I signed up for one, and that really was like my rehab. And I just devoted myself to that for 10 months, and I did the Ironman. And I was in that Ironman as I was getting lopped by Paul Ambrose. So he was like, he finished like 2 hours ahead of me or something in the race. And it was there where I kind of was like, wow, that's absolutely amazing. I can't believe a human being could do that. And I think that's where like the seed to be a professional started to grow in my head, and wonder if I could do something like that. And so that was the beginning of the journey for me.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Daniel, I want to talk to you a little bit about the PTO and And these events, I know you weren't, I don't believe you were at the Canadian Open. No, you weren't at the Canadian Open. Can you tell us just a little bit about the PTO and what that means for you? Obviously you've been to the 2 Collins Cups that have happened and obviously been successful at those. Just tell us a little bit about the PTO and.
Yeah, I'd say first of all, the stuff Lionel have been doing on social media and YouTube and whatever, he brought us here. So it's stories like Lionel tells that, I think both for Sam and I made us realize, how amazing it is to what we do, and just the fact that, that we are able to push ourselves more than what we actually think we are. That's a huge experience for me, and I know it is for Sam as well. So, you brought us here, that's for sure. But at the same time, Pete, I think what we are seeing right now is it's a whole new generation of racing in triathlon. The fact that we can actually call this a professional sport for the first time in the history of triathlon, I think, with the way PTO are doing races, setting things up, media, attention from all over the world. I think that's just how it's supposed to be. You see here, it's a world-class lineup. Normally, we go to races where it's not all the best people in the world who are together and racing for the big prize money purse. We see that here. We saw that in Edmonton as well. And I think that's what we've been missing. Because what we want to do is go head-to-head with the best guys in the world. We do that now, and we have that opportunity with the PTO and the races they put out for us. I think we just have to support that as professional athletes.
Awesome. Sam, I certainly don't want to dwell on all of this, but it was, the Collins Cup was an emotional, heading into it, it was very, very emotional for you. How hard was it to go from that and just get into pure race mode? Because, obviously on race day, you and Lionel were it just seemed like you were in that race mode. And was that a hard transition to make?
No, not at all. I'd say the easiest thing of that whole week was putting my shoes on, putting my wetsuit on, and going and, putting the thing to rest and laying it down. And I live to race. I love to race. And what can be hard is actually, you're put in a dramatic situation, and that killer instinct's wanting to come out, because when we go race, we're all killers. And but then, you got to play nice, and you got to be super friendly all week when someone's attacking you. That was the hard thing.
Well, I sort of feel like that's part of the struggle that we're having. Traditionally it has been playing nice, and we're sort of trying to get into the, let's get some trash talking and get the excitement going. And you suddenly found yourself in the midst of all of that. How challenging was that?
Yeah, I guess in a way, I sort of started it. Well, no, that's not true. I don't want to say I started it. You can go back to Macca and Crowe, and there were some pretty serious things that happened, but social media wasn't as big back then, so I think it's a new dynamic now. But then, Mount Lemmon, I think, sort of started a lot during COVID, and it put a target on my back as this guy who likes to talk smack and create that rivalry, and that's certainly true. And during COVID, I think I needed that just to stay sane, to give me something to get out the door, because it was a depressing year, and to have something to compete for was so amazing. But no, I think both can absolutely exist, and I think both can be fun, and I think you can have tons of respect for your competitors while also saying you want to beat them, and then you go out, and I think you can then race with your absolute heart and give it everything to beat the guy. And then I think, regardless of if you win or lose, you can congratulate the guy who wins, and then you can go out and you can have fun with them. That's the real beauty of our sport. You can be mortal enemies and best friends, I think.
Yeah, I like it. Lionel, you were the one sort of on the brunt of the Mount Lemmon stuff, but then you got to you just seemed like you were having a good old time just sitting and watching in Shamron. What was But I'll talk first about the Mount Lemmon thing. Did that get you fired up, and how did you react to all of that?
That was a lot of fun, actually. I greatly appreciate. I don't know if it was really any beef or anything. It was just gentlemanly competition for the most part. But yeah, he went. I literally had wanted to get Mount Lemmon's been like my favorite thing to climb. Like probably one of my favorite sporting things ever. And if you don't know, it's like a 26-mile beautiful climb in Tucson, Arizona, and it was like one of the first. I got Barry Shepley actually right over there. It was like one of the first real sporting things I ever did in my life, and so it was like I've always loved climbing Mount Lemmon, and it became a dream to take the fastest time up Mount Lemmon. And so I finally, it took me like 10 years of hard work on the bike and learning the mountain, and I finally took the fastest time up the mountain, and 1 week later, Sam Long goes and takes my time. And it was a little bit upsetting, of course, but it's just fun competition, and so the world doesn't know, but I went back like every 3 days trying to take the time back and failed and failed. I actually believe it caused an injury, actually, because I became like obsessed with trying to take the time back. But finally, I did take the time back, and so Sam is due for a rematch. Hopefully, he's living in Tucson now, so hopefully in a few months' time when the season's over, maybe we can go head-to-head even.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, doing the head, and just sort of one straight, for most people, 26-mile and beautiful before climb don't go in the same sentence.
It is a truly beautiful climb. If you're ever in Tucson, you have to do it. Bring your bike.
Michael Johnson, I want you, obviously you're talking rivalries and stuff. What, for you, and you talked a little bit about this in the prep room, before the Olympics and stuff, how did you handle rivalries? Or I guess maybe there weren't any when you're Michael Johnson.
No, there's serious rivalries in the sport, and I think it's important. I think to Sam's point, it's good for the sport as long as you can remain respectful. I'm not sure about the best friends part. When you got rivals. I wasn't friends with any of my competitors. I'm friends with them now, but then we were bitter rivals. But for the most part, most of them, it never crossed the line to getting to a point where it was disrespectful. But none of us made any apologies for wanting to beat the crap out of the others, and my position was always, I want to cross the finish line as far ahead of my competitors as possible. I want to be able to watch them finish. And that was, and they knew that, but it's important, to have those rivalries. Fans love head-to-head competition. They want to see people. There is that part, I think, to competition where, from a fan's perspective, where they know that you got all of these competitors, but those two guys absolutely don't want to lose to one another. Like my fans knew that, there were specific people, like Carl Lewis, as an example. We had a real rivalry for years. When I came into the sport, he was sort of the king of the sport. And there was a battle between us for who's now going to be the king of the sport. And he didn't want to give it up. And I had to try to wrestle it away from him. And people got into that story. There's a story there that's more than just who wins this race. And it was also sort of, for the rest of our careers. And there were some other guys like this in my events as well that, just for specific reasons, those were guys that fans knew, well, Michael doesn't want to lose to that guy. Anybody else, maybe, he'd be okay, but if he loses to that guy, it's going to be really bad. That, fans get into. So I think that those stories, if they're not there, then, then that's sort of that missing thing. You have that in team sports, the rivalries in team sports that people get into. So I think it's important. So, you guys are probably a bit too friendly to each other.
Daniel Beckegaard, last year, I got to sort of hang out and chat with you a ton at Ironman Lanzarote, and I kind of came away going, guys, he's too nice to win. And then you ended up winning the next day and stomping on everyone. But I almost get the feeling, is it hard to sort of pull out the competitive juices for you on race day?
No, I think all of us, it's like that kind of switch. Personally, I find it like if I go to race mode too early, I will be done when the race starts. Then I'll not be able to pull it up. So I feel like, of course, in the morning you're nervous and you have all that kind of pre-race nerves and everything. But when that gun goes, everything just switches on, and it's race mode, and you just, as Michael says, you just want to beat the out of everybody else.
Be careful. This is being streamed live around the world. Be careful, please.
Crap, Daniel, crap.
Great self-control.
For the first time. Yes, I think everybody kind of course, when we race on the level we do, we have that kind of killer instinct. Everybody does that. So it's just about learning yourself, like how to perform on the highest level. And if that works for you to be nice to a guy a couple of days before the race, then I think that's fine. And if it's also you have to be enemies with all of your fellow athletes, then that works for you. And as long as you perform on race day, that's a good thing.
Yeah, awesome. Sam, I just want to ask you, I'm sitting here next to the PTO US Open trophies and just wondering, what would it mean to you to be holding this trophy up on Sunday afternoon?
Yeah, I mean, as a personal achievement, it would mean the world to me. But I definitely carry a burden for all of America, or not a burden. It's actually the opposite. It's something that lifts me up, that propels me forward, and I'm well aware that. And I think this really is the same caliber as a 70.3 World Championships. I think it can be considered a mid-distance World Championships, and an American has never won that title, and it's been since 2002 or 2002 that Tim DeBoom won the Ironman World Championship title. So like, America's, we're kind of low on the totem pole right now of triathlon, and I'm trying to bring that back. I know all the other fellow American guys and girls are trying to bring that back, and that's something that propels me forward with a lot of joy and passion, and just to do the absolute best I can for my country, especially on home soil and Texas. Texas is the heart of America.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, no, and actually, and as you were saying all of that, and the inspiration and doing that, just got some of the stats from USA Triathlon. Like right now, youth annual memberships are up 13% over last year, and then that's for youth, and then 19% in terms of the total membership. I'm going to ask all three of you, and then I'll ask Michael at the end. How important is it to you to be an inspiration?
I mean, that's probably the major driving force, I would say, other than, the joy of competition. Of course, I love competition. I love exercising. But inspiring others to feel that same love, and like triathlon, I do truly believe saved my life. And exercise, endurance is an outlet for me, for my mental health. And so to inspire, I know that endurance sport can positively affect the entire world, can affect everyone and anyone. And so to just get that out there, get that message out there, is an extremely large driving force for me, undoubtedly.
Yeah, I think I started seeing it at my local triathlon club. We have like joint sessions. So we go to the track, everybody, and not doing the same sessions, but we're just there at the track. So I remember it back when I watched Rasmus Henning doing his workouts, a former world
champion, yeah.
So he knew what he was doing, and I remember looking up to him. I never imagined myself being his position, but I can see it now. The way, the way the young kids, they enjoy just doing the same efforts as I do on the track, or whatever that is, creating good memories, because that was a huge thing for me growing up. Just exercising with your friends and have that social part of life. So be able to kind of create that space just in my local triathlon club is a huge thing. And if I can do that to a broad audience, I would be very happy. That's a huge driving force.
How about for you, Sam?
Yeah, I have to agree. It's everything, and I guess just listening to these two guys, I was sort of playing back my childhood. And when I was growing up, like I looked up to all these stars that are of of the global sports world at the time. You know, someone like Lance Armstrong before all the news came out, and football players and professional skiers. And I wanted to be a professional athlete of any kind, and I literally tried every single sport imaginable as a kid. And I was never like, well, I think partly I was doing like 5 sports every season, so I was like never any good at them. And then I got into triathlon, and it just clicked, and it was like, okay, this is something like I can do. And so selfishly, it was like, this is what I wanted to do. But I think I go back and I remember that kid, and I remember like, that was like what got me out of bed every day, was looking up to these people and wanting to be like them. And I just want to be like that to someone else. And then I think, okay, I've got this silly shirt, yo, yo, yo on, but it's like some of the happiest things I see is actually like, because babies love yo, yo, yo. It's pink, and it's like baby words, yo, 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 you know, and it's like, I see it on Instagram, and it's some 4-year-old, yo, 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 and it's like, that's the coolest thing ever to me.
Well, that's awesome. Michael Johnson, what is it like to be an inspiration? You know, 8-time world champion, 4-time Olympic gold medalist, and changing the world for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, sports has that ability to bridge gaps, inspire young people to live a healthy and active lifestyle, even if they don't ultimately become a professional. So inspiring the next generation to be involved in sports, to find a sport that truly inspires them is really important. And I think that from a participation standpoint, it is really important. It's great the work you guys are doing, because it's important to have those superstars at the top, that young kids can look up to and aspire to be like. I mean, as a kid playing sport, you play it because you love it, but then also, you're inspired by those that are the best in the world and recognized for being the best in the world. I mean, kids playing basketball, they want to be LeBron, and every sport needs that LeBron or that, Lionel Messi or, that Serena Williams, that person that will inspire that next generation, because they see those athletes that are the best in the world and being recognized as such.
Awesome. Well, that sort of leads us to the tail end of our press conference here. I was just wondering if there's any chance we could kind of head out to the parking lot and have a 100-meter sprint with all of you guys. Any chance that we could coordinate that?
Got to save the fast twitch muscles, saving them for Sunday.
Yeah,
Lionel, you up
saving them for Sunday. Yeah, saving them for Sunday.
I'm going to pass on that one. Yeah.
I've never seen Lionel pass up on a chance to compete before. This is a first. All right. Well, hey, thank you so much, gentlemen. Good luck on Sunday. So thank you very much to Lionel Sanders, Sam Long, Daniel Beckegaard, and of course, Michael Johnson. Thank you all for joining us here, and we're looking forward to a fantastic weekend of racing, and look forward to seeing you guys out. We got a busy Saturday and Sunday, our short course event for the age groupers, and then our women's race on Saturday, and then our long course for the age groupers, and our men's race on Sunday. So thank you for joining us here at our PTO US Open press conference, and have a great weekend, everyone.
A new era of triathlon starts now. The PTO Tour, the evolution of endurance. The ultimate athletes, the ultimate distance, for the ultimate prize. Triathlon's greatest events. PTO US Open. Triathlon heads to Texas. Last chance to settle the scores. Who can handle the heat and become the US Open champions?